because you got some bad thinking right now. And so let me continually remind you of whose you are, how much I love you. Let me continually remind you of how much God loves you over and over and over and over and over again. Let that connection be strong, because the connection is not a matter of position, me and God together. If the connection really starts with a mindset believing that we are eternally connected. The moment I stop believing that we are connected right now is the moment I manifest a disconnect. You get what I'm saying? The good news of the gospel is that nothing can separate you from his love. I want you to hear that. Nothing can separate you. Circumstances, anything can separate you. Mindsets, you can't be separated. Even if you don't believe in God, God's love is connected to you. You might have not accepted it yet, but his love is there. It's available. It's unconditional. So the issue is not a matter of an actual positional disconnect from the love of God. It's a matter of a mindset that says, you know what, because of my failure, God doesn't love me. Therefore, I disconnect myself by my actions and start believing a lie that isn't even true. You with me? Okay, I'm going to attempt to go a little deep here, okay? So you need to track with me as best you can. I know, like I said, there are many factors. You could be tired one day. You could be pregnant. You might be a woman and you have the 3-letter acronym manifesting in your life. And you might have every excuse as to why you're irritable right now. And I want to push that aside for a second, and I want to just focus on this concept of love is bigger and can be bigger than all these things, okay? I got to share this story as I was thinking about something a little bit lighter. I remember like a few years ago, maybe like four and a half years ago, I felt like I had no energy. And so I decided to go to like just like a Popeyes supplement store, and I bought these like testosterone pills. I didn't really do my research or anything. I just bought them, and I'm like, I just need more testosterone in my system. My wife remembers this very clearly. And because I say this to say because there is a level of like outside influence that comes, you know. So I want to give credibility to that. I'm not discounting that. And I was taking these pills, and probably not the right dosage. I probably wasn't even working out enough in context to how much I was pumping into my system. And I was like starting to get super irritated all the time. And I couldn't figure out why. I was just like hyper irritated all the time, everywhere. And I remember it came to a climax. We were driving to a cottage with our family. You remember this? We were driving to a cottage with our family, and my kids were like doing something, and we told them to be quiet. There was something happening. They were fighting or something. I don't remember what was going on. And it was escalating and escalating and escalating and escalating. And if you're a parent, you know, like already when you say to stop or you say and it keeps escalating, eventually there's a breaking point, right? Okay, and I'm letting you into my like failure, my awesome godly parenting right now, okay? I'm letting you into my amazing godly parenting, my flawless track record right now. I'm letting you in, okay? I'm letting you in, okay? And I all of a sudden, I think it surprised my wife, we're driving, I got so the irritation built up so, I didn't even know, I wasn't even connected to how irritated I was becoming. And out of my mouth, I'm telling you, this is how awesome and holy I am, okay? Out of my mouth, I literally screamed, "Shut up!" in my van. And the moment I did that, I literally like stopped. I caught myself. I'm like, whoa. That wasn't me. Like that was not me. There's a disconnect there. Like something is off. And that was the moment I think my wife, even though she already was warning me, because the wife is usually right, I think I shouldn't have been taking those testosterone pills. Anyways. I say that all to say, just to lighten a little bit, is that there is some level of contributing factors to irritability. But I don't want to land the plane there. I want to keep it from a scriptural standpoint. Like I said, I want to paint this new covenant picture using an old covenant passage in 1 Samuel 16. I really don't know how long I'm going to get and how I'm going to get through it. But let's go here. Saul. Everyone say Saul. There was a man named Saul, first king of Israel. There was a second man named David, second king of Israel, who was known as the greatest king that Israel ever had. He was noted, went down in history, the greatest king. Jesus came from the line of David. He was even called the son of David, okay? So Saul, let's look at Saul for a second. And Saul represents the old covenant. Saul represents the works of the flesh. Saul represents bad behavior gets bad punishment. David represents grace. David represents the new covenant. David represents sort of a picture of Jesus, okay? Now, I don't have time to go into all the symbolic, all the different layers of how they both represent those two things, okay? But I want to paint that picture as we dive into this really quickly. Saul, okay, because back in the old covenant, back under the old way, okay, God did not come and rest on everybody forever like he does now. Part of the good news of the gospel is that Jesus came and he's here to stay within us. He's made his home within us. He's here to stay. See, there was a time in the old covenant under the law where God would come and go according to the assignment. You were a bad boy, he'd lift off. That's why David would, when he was in sin, he said, God, please don't take your spirit from me. Because, you see, the favor and the grace of God would land on an individual for an assignment. And if that person was disobedient or was not listening and compromising love, because in that time, love was tested through obedience, like at some level still is today. I don't have time to dive into that. Saul was anointed by the prophet Samuel to be the king of Israel. Saul chose to reject the voice of God. Saul was going to battle one day, and through the prophet, through the word of the Lord, through God speaking, he said, listen, I want you to take care of this, conquer, but I don't want you to keep anything for yourself. Don't keep any plunder, basically. And I'm just paraphrasing right now. He did the opposite. He was afraid of what the people would say, and he did the opposite. He did not listen to the voice of God. He compromised love, therefore disconnecting himself from the assignment. Okay? You with me? In that context, in Old Covenant, when you disconnected yourself from the assignment, okay, it was like disconnecting yourself from love. It was like disconnecting yourself from what we call the anointing, okay? He was anointed for a task to do something specific. Samuel, the prophet, had anointed Saul to do something, to fulfill an assignment. He rejected that assignment by not listening to the voice of God. That anointing lifted off of him, the favor lifted, and he was disconnected, and as a result, started having a bad mood. Now we know David was then selected. David was the next king in line. He was selected, and Samuel then anointed David to be king. David was anointed many years, almost 2 decades before as king, before he ever sat on the throne as king. David was anointed. You're called to be king, but now you got to go through a process, battling and faithfulness and all these different things before you sit on the throne. Because you could be anointed to have great purpose and a great call in life, but never sit in your place of influence because you don't go through the process he's leading you on. And you can say all your life, I'm anointed for greatness, I'm going to do great things. But if you don't get off your butt and do something with what you've got, you're not sitting in any place of influence in society. You got to steward what you have. So just to paint that picture, after Saul had disconnected himself and disobeyed, it says in 1 Samuel 15, verse 10, the Lord said to Samuel, I'm sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and has refused to obey my command. Let's skip over to verse 22, that same chapter. In 1 Samuel 15, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. Okay? Samuel replied to Saul, they're in conversation, what is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? In this context, what he was saying is, if you want to keep love uncompromised, obedience. You can't impress God with your sacrifices, your big offerings. You can't impress God. If you're obedient, that's what God cares about. And so that's a sign that you have your love on. It's like husbands and wives, right? Like it's like you can do all the things and provide for them, and you can give them all the things that they ever could dream of, the house, the car, the whole thing. But all they really want is you to listen to them. All they really want is you to be present with them. All they really want is you to love them. Other stuff does not equal love to them. And if you keep doing it in the name of love, it's kind of like what God is saying here. He's like, listen, it's about listening, you guys. It's not about all this stuff, about all the sacrifices. Look how awesome I am. No, it's about love, keeping your love on. Verse 23, it says, rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. This was the way it was back then. This is why it's a better covenant now, because this is not how it is now. Okay? It's good news. It's too good to be true. Back then, your behavior was everything. Your obedience was everything. It goes down and says in verse 24, I'm going to jump down. It says, "For I was afraid of the people and did what they demanded." Has anyone ever done that before, where they've sacrificed? And I want to say it like this: love is often compromised on the altar of people-pleasing. You compromise love. You say, "I don't, whatever, God, like, I know you said this to me. I know I should do this, but I really care way too much what people think of me over here. So I'm going to, and because you're good, you're God of grace, it's okay." But you compromise love in those moments when you know you should do one thing and you do the opposite because of what people might think. And in that moment, when you feel disconnected, a subconscious self-hate kicks in. Failure. I don't like myself. And that's when your mood begins to change. Some of the happiest people I know are the people that live the least like people pleasers. People pleasing is not a happy place to live. It's a very depressing place to live. Let's continue on. Verse 27 of chapter 15. Samuel turned to go. Saul tried to hold him back and tore the hem of his robe. And Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to someone else, one who is better than you." What a diss. What a diss, eh? That's what happens when you get disconnected. So you got to understand Saul's context now. So Saul, in his disobedience, invites a consequence. When we are not listening and we compromise love, we invite consequences into our life. It's not that God is punishing us, so to speak, all the time. It's not like God is punishing us and, it's like detached himself from us. No, we actually invite consequences. We invite pain. We invite unnecessary burdens into our life by disobedience and not listening, right? Your wife says, "Don't do this," and you do it, and you break your arm. You should have listened to your wife, because your wife's always right. Not always right, but most of the time she's right. Now you have the consequence of a broken arm. You should have just listened to your wife. You get the principle of what I'm trying to say. We invite consequence, okay? It's not God is punishing us. God is doing it. We actually invite it by our stupidity. Let me now read the context in Samuel 16. Let me read this now, verse 14. "At that very moment, the Spirit of God left Saul, and in its place, a black mood." Say it with me, black mood. "A black mood sent by God settled on him, and he was terrified." Now, if you read it, in other translations, in other contexts, it says it like a spirit was sent by the Lord, okay? Now, you have to understand, because that sounds very like, oh my gosh, like just messed up theologically. And that's why when you read Scripture, you have to read it in context. You have to understand the nature of allegorical talk at that time. You have to understand how their wording was used and why it was used the way it was. If you were to break this down properly in context, really what it's saying is he allowed it, but ultimately what he was saying is that Saul invited it. So because Saul invited it, God didn't stop it. You see what I'm saying? It's totally different than God sent it. If you don't take care of your body and you get sick in your body, you can't blame God. He did not send sickness into your body. You somehow stopped taking care of yourself and you invited it in, but God just didn't stop it. Now, God can stop whatever he wants to stop, but we don't always understand why he doesn't stop it. But the reality of it is God actually cannot mess with free will. If you keep by your own choice, make dumb decisions over and over again, that's the beautiful thing about love. Love does not compromise free will. Because he loves you, he gives you the ability to make choices. And whether they're good or bad, he gives you the ability. And you'll always suffer the outcomes because of that ability that you have to make free will choices. Because he loves you so much and he wants you to learn that he's not made you a robot. Or made you his sort of slave in a negative sense, so to speak, where he just do whatever he wants you to do. No, you have to make the choice to lean into him. And lean into his voice and listen. Are you with me? Stay with me. Okay, some of you look tired. You're making me tired. Okay. It says he was terrified, verse 15. Saul's advisors said, "This is awful, tormenting depression from God." Once again, not from God. Don't read it like that. He allowed it because Saul invited it, okay, by his disconnectedness. It says it was making his life miserable. So his servant said, "Oh, master, let us help. Let us look for someone who can play the harp. When the black mood from God moves in, he'll play his music and you'll feel better." So this is now where, remember, David had already been anointed as king. So now Saul hears about this guy named David who's been on the hill leading worship to a bunch of sheep for the last however many years, taking care of these sheep. He's playing his harp. He's writing poetry. He's super creative, which means he's always up and down. He's like a bipolar in his emotions, up and down. And here God selects him through Saul. He's like, hey, there's this guy, son of Jesse. And he has no idea how God's putting everything together right now. Saul doesn't know. But God knows he's the next king. But it's a matter of time. He's got to serve. He's got to get his feet wet a little bit in the context of the kingdom, which is Saul's kingdom at the time. Even though he lost his anointing as king, he was still sitting on his throne as king, which tells us all this. You can actually be sitting in a place of influence and have lost the grace for it, not even realize it. You could be sitting at a job right now that you felt you were anointed and called for, but because you're afraid to leave and disconnect from it, it's actually the worst thing for you because the grace is lifted and you're not even aware of it, but everybody else is. Well, so this was Saul's experience, okay? When the black mood from God moves in, David will play his music and feel better. Let's just pass it down. Let's get down a little lower here. I don't have time to go through all this, although there's some awesome stuff in here. It says in verse 23, after that, whenever the bad depression from God tormented Saul, David got out his harp and played. This would calm Saul down, and he would feel better as the moodiness lifted. Now, let me just paint this picture for you. There's lots of spiritual stuff going on here, okay? This is another side of the mountain I want you to see of the scripture here. Because in one sense, it's like the music is bringing deliverance to Saul, okay? But on the other sense, okay, because of Saul's disconnectedness, David is a reminder of the connectedness that Saul once had as king. You get what I'm saying? Saul was anointed as king, right? He could discern. He felt that call, that anointing, the purpose. He had the favor of God on him to fulfill the task. Now that favor had lifted, was placed on David. Part of the reason why he felt the moodiness lift is because he felt connected again. Because he could smell the anointing. He could smell what was once on him, now is on somebody else. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to language it, but that's why David was put in position to relieve Saul of the tension and the moodiness and the depression because of his disconnect from love, because he compromised love. Are you hearing me? And David was the reminder of what was at one time. And so he's like, man, I got to get around this guy. I need this guy because he's a picture. It's also a picture of the law versus grace. The law brings us to the end of ourselves, and grace is the better way. What once used to work under the law no longer works anymore, so I need to be around grace because grace is the next step. It's the new thing. Oh, I hope you're getting this. This is so revolutionary if you can connect to what I'm saying right now. So I'm really hoping you're connecting to what I'm saying. Let me just give you a few things here. I want to give you a few quick thoughts around what moods do for us or do against us when we're disconnected. Using the story of Saul. Saul was disconnected, compromised love, moody, irritable, disconnected from love. Saul, in this context, his mood began to magnify what was already in him. Write that down if you're taking notes. Our moods have the ability to magnify the lack of something in the character, the lack of value, kingdom values, the lack of love that we have for those that aren't like us or are like us or whatever the case may be. It magnified something that wasn't not there before. It was already there. I don't know, but man, like I remember this. I have this memory, and I shared it with somebody. I don't know who. It might have been you, Matt. I don't know who it was, but I was recently somewhere. I can't remember where it was. I wish I could remember where it was. It was either like it was some sort of storefront store. It could have been a coffee shop. I don't remember quite where it was. And I went up to the front desk to buy something, and I was asking a question about the thing I was buying. I can't remember what it was, like I said. And so this person's working there, right? And it was like one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life come out of someone's mouth. And I said, I asked them a question about something, about a product that they were selling or what something that I was going to buy. And out of this girl's mouth, she said, I don't know, I just work here. I literally stopped. I looked at her. I was like, exactly. Like you work here. It was like one of the funniest things I've ever heard. I'm even like, in my mind, I'm like, do you not think yourself, like, you not think you're funny saying that? Like, it's coming out of your mouth, like, you're okay? It was like, she was completely disconnected from what she just said. Like, I would feel a little bit moronic, I don't know about you, if that came out of my mouth. You get what I'm saying? She could have said, like, I don't know, I haven't learned that part of it yet. I don't know, I just work here. Well, exactly, you work here, so you should know, anyways. But it really, like, in that moment, I could tell going up to her, though, her mood, she didn't want to be there. She was super disconnected from the purpose that she had probably maybe one time or never maybe at her job. She had no connection to why she was there. She was irritable. Anybody ever met anybody like that? I mean, I've been at like 5-star restaurants where people that are working there that you think that would own it feel disconnected, are irritable. You can't ask them a question. You feel like a burden. And I ask a lot of questions at restaurants. If you've ever been with me, I'm like, hey, what's it made out of? Like, can you not cook it with this? Like, and I don't really care. I actually don't get embarrassed easy. So other people around me, when they're with me, they get embarrassed. But I'm just like, I'm paying for the food. And I'm always the one that leaves happy. Or other people that don't say anything, they always leave complaining. I actually usually leave pretty happy because I actually get to control what goes into my food, at some level. Anyways, whatever. Beside the point. But, like, I've been at 5-star restaurants where it's like the mood that they're in, it just magnifies. They don't want to be here. They want to be here. I was at the canal recently with a guest. I brought Tommy when he was here. I brought Tommy to the canal, and I brought him there. We didn't even skate. I brought him there to get him a beaver tail. And like at the canal, so like I said, I've been at 5-star restaurants where it's like horrible, service. And I'm at the canal at the beaver tail, like thing, the cabin. And this guy who was serving Tommy and I, like, he was like a 5-star host. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, what are you doing? Not that you shouldn't be there, but like, what are you doing here? Like, you should be the guy that replaces the guy at the 5-star restaurant. I mean, like, this guy was like so awesome. It magnified his mood of joy. It was like, it magnified that, like, you know what? Wherever he is, he's chosen to be the guy, like, connected to the moment. I was asking him questions. I'm like, hey, can you do this? Do this. And he's like, no problem. He's like, no problem. And he would repeat after me what I'd said so he wouldn't forget. No, he was just so on it. You know those people? You just love them. You want to, like, man, if you could just, like, be in our church and be one of our hosts, like, come on. Not that we don't have good hosts, but you get what I'm saying. Like, they carry it. Some people just carry it, But his mood, it just magnified, like, the awesomeness inside of him, his connectedness to the moment. Moods have this way of magnifying bigger issues in our life. I know for me, like, I can honestly trace back every time that I've gotten really upset at my kids. Once again, I say this kind of teeter-tottering because I know there is an element of irritability, but when you're connected to love, you're in control. You could have a tornado going around you, and you could say, you know what, well, they did this, and they said this, and so-and-so said this, and so-and-so said that. But if you're in love, you're in control. When you're disconnected from love and you're compromising love, that's when you start letting the outside circumstances control your internal peace. And I can honestly trace back every time that I've lost it on my kids, something was bothering me internally so deeply, and as a result, I felt disconnected from love in that moment. I felt like, I'm just a failure, something's wrong with me, I'm not a good person, whatever. And then that manifests and is magnified when the external pressure comes. Because when the only way you get oil out of an olive is to crush it. When you crush something, you know what's inside of it already. Nothing new comes out of an olive when you crush it. It's already been there. When you're being pressed with heavy circumstances and every excuse to be irritated, what's already in you comes out. And if you're feeling disconnected from love in that moment and you're in that mood, it's going to manifest itself in irritability. Because that was already inside of you before the crushing happened. You follow me? So our moods magnify. This is what happened to Saul. We're almost done here, okay? We're almost done here, I promise. 1 Samuel 18. I'm gonna go down a little bit because now this mood started to magnify Saul's insecurities, Saul's jealousies, and David started to get victory. David started to get clout with the people. David started to be recognized, and people started to notice, even they wouldn't have languaged it, maybe this guy's the next king. They wouldn't have said it like that, but they saw something special on David. They saw him being elevated. In verse 7 of chapter 18, it says this was their song. So David's coming back from war, and people are singing, Saul has killed his thousands, and David his 10,000s. This made Saul very angry. What's this? He said. They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands. Next, they'll be making him their king. You see, he still has no idea. He's sitting in his place of authority, has no idea what's going to happen. But he's aware of it now. And his mood, this disconnectedness from God, is actually magnifying these insecurities and these fears in him. He's unstable now because he knows the anointing and favor of God has left him for the assignment. He's like, it's just a matter of time now. Verse 9, so from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. Then it goes on to say, and then the next day, a tormenting spirit from God overwhelmed Saul, and he began to once again go into this mood and rave in his house like a madman. And while David was playing his harp, even he would take spears and throw them at David, trying to kill David. This is the craziness of Saul now. See, there's a tipping point. If you don't deal with your irritability, if you don't deal with that disconnectedness you feel and that self-hatred you feel because of the failure that you feel day in, day out, eventually it manifests and can manifest in extreme madness. Now, this is not a psychology lesson. I'm just giving you the scripture here. David was playing his harp. Saul began to hurl spears at him and try to pin him to the wall, but David escaped twice. And Saul became very afraid of David. You'd think it would say David was afraid of Saul, even though David was afraid of Saul. It says Saul was afraid of David. And oftentimes people, when they're afraid of you, try to hurt you. People that are most jealous of you try to hurt you. Most of the time, listen, your haters are never going to be people that are doing better than you. The haters that come against you are those that feel like they're not doing as good as you and they're jealous of you. And that mood of disconnectedness that they feel are in, it causes them to want to attack back. Because they're afraid of you. Don't let your emotions, write this down, take you where his grace is not permitted to sustain you. Don't let your emotions take you where his grace is not permitted to sustain you. Because our moods can really drive us, take us to dangerous places. It says in Proverbs 16, verse 32, whoever controls his temper is better than a warrior, and anyone who has control of his spirit is better than someone who captures a city. Isn't that awesome? It's better to control your temper, keep your love on, be in control. Love is not irritable, than to be the one that comes out and says, I've conquered a city. Isn't that a powerful illustration for you? I don't know, is this getting into you? I know it's a little bit heavy, and it's a little bit much. Some of you are falling asleep on me. We're almost done. Number 2, write this down. Our moods can manipulate. Our moods can manipulate. Anybody ever been in a room where someone walks into the room and the mood that they're in just manipulates the whole room, right? It's like you're walking on the eggshells. Anybody ever feel that? I think it happens in every environment. Someone has a bad day, a bad drive to work. They come into your office and they bring their mood with them. Man, good leadership doesn't bring their mood with them. Good leadership, good character leaves the mood with them leaves the mood at the door. That's good leadership. Maturity looks like not trying to look mature by wearing your emotions on your sleeve. You'll get nowhere in life. There's a certain context and place to wear your emotions on your sleeve. If you wear it in every environment, you'll have no job and have no money. Because no one will want to be around you. Be like, I'm just being real, brother. Well, no, you're being annoying. You know, we all have emotions. We all have stuff to deal with. Like, leave it at the door, get the thing done, and then find the context properly where you can manifest your mood. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't want your mood to manipulate the room you walk into. That's not good character. That's not good leadership. And we all struggle with it at times. Let's just be honest. But it's something that we have to keep in check, because when our love is connected, when we feel connected, once again, it's not a matter of God detaching his love from us that makes us feel connected. It's us inviting the disconnect in our mindset because of what we've done. God's like, man, you can't. Romans 8 says, nothing can separate my love from you. Neither height, nor depth, nor width, nothing can separate. No matter what ruler of darkness, no demon in hell can separate you from my love. So what is separating you from feeling love? It's your own stupidity at times, disconnecting yourself because you're not listening. Making the mistake because you have free will. You disconnect yourself and your mindset. You begin to believe God doesn't have love for me now because I'm a failure, and then that manifests in your mood and you get irritated and you lash out. Self-hatred. Man, I can remember times when we've been in environments in school settings where someone would come in and they'd carrying a mood, and it wasn't just a bad mood, it was like a demonic mood, you know. And I remember there was a time when this girl came in and you could tell it was like just something was manipulating the atmosphere. About halfway through the message, I addressed it. I looked at this person's eyes, and you can usually see it in the eyes. And I pointed at this individual, started praying, and all of a sudden she started shrieking. Now, for those of you who don't believe this stuff exists, it does. And when you see it, you just can't deny it. You know, watch The Exorcist. No, don't watch The Exorcist. But yeah, in a sense, there's a lot of truth in it. Anyways, and I've seen this hundreds of times. I've dealt with it. But she started shrieking, and it was crazy. And we took her into the basement of this church because it was disrupting the meeting. I had a whole team of praying for her, and you could feel almost like the building vibrating. It was crazy. But it shows you the power of a mood, a power of when you invite something into your life that's not His heart for you and love's compromised. It has the power to change the atmosphere. You with me? Just really quickly, I'm going to close. I'm not going to do my last point, but in this context of moods manipulating, this happened to Saul. In chapter 18, verse 17, it started happening to him because Saul was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to manipulate David into a circumstance so he could be taken out because I'm afraid of him, so I want to kill him. So, David, here's my first daughter. I'm going to give you my first daughter, okay? I'm going to give her to you. But to get her, you have to do something. Her name is Merab, okay? But you have to do something. I'm going to send you out to the Philistines, and you're going to deal with them. And once you do that, deal with them, you come back, I'll give you my daughter. For those of you who know the story, he went out, did the deed, came back, and Saul decided to not give the daughter to him because it was never in his plan, because his plan was to send him out to the Philistines so he would die. Okay? So now his moods begin to manipulate him to do things that are a sign he's so far gone now, there's no hope of returning. Then it happens again in verse 20. Then Michal, his other daughter, fell in love with David. So now Saul was super happy because he has a second opportunity to send his other daughter into a situation where it allows David to be killed. So he sends to David, said, David, now you got to go out. This time, we'll go fight the Philistines, but this time I want 100 foreskins. You got to prove to me. What a day, eh? Like, here's a sack of some bloody foreskins for you. Future father-in-law, you know. He's like, I want 100 foreskins. Go kill the Philistines. Go deal with them. Comes back, he gets 200. How many bags? Just 200 foreskins. I don't know. He gets I can't even. I love putting myself in those situations. How does that even look? You know what I mean? It's like, I can't even imagine. Like, who's the guy that's doing it anyways? It's like, it's my job, you know. You hate your leader at that point. David, why did you pick me? Like 200, man. Like, my hands are blistered anyways. So that's how my mind thinks. I want to be in the moment. How does that look like? How does that work? And so he brings back 200 foreskins, and it says here, let me just read it to you. It says here, before this happened in verse 25, tell David that all I want for the bride price is 100 Philistine foreskins, okay? Then he says, but what Saul had in mind was that David would be killed in the fight. So you see it again. Then it says David brought back the 200 foreskins. Then it says in verse 29, Saul became even more afraid of him, and he remained David's enemy for the rest of his life. You see where this mood took Saul. I want you to stand up. I know I kind of ended on a downer, even though all of you have the foreskin image in your mind now. I want you to stand up with me. It wasn't my intention. Like I said, it was a little bit of a peculiar passage that I wanted to connect to this love is not irritable. But I feel like God wants to deliver us today of some things. And we're a little bit over time here. So what I want you to do right now, if you're in this room, I want you to lift your hands, just if you feel comfortable right now, just as a place of like surrender. Because I feel like there are some disconnected people in this room. You've forgotten that Jesus loves you, like with everything in him. You're trying by your awesome life to show God how much you love him, while forgetting the most important factor in all of it is that he actually loves you. And he first loved you. And you can't even give him any sort of real love back if you don't understand first that he loved you. And one of the ways that we understand that is through understanding that his love is expressed through a son named Jesus dying on a cross over 2,000 years ago to reconnect you because you were disconnected. And if you're in this room, you've never let Jesus in today. You don't know what would happen if you were to die today. You've never let him into your life. You've never said yes to him. You don't know where you'd go if you were to die. It's a very simple thing. Romans 10 says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is God, that Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that he was raised from the dead to give you new life, you'll have new life. The moment you accept that and receive that, all things are new. And I want everyone right now with our hands raised, just say this with me. Say, Jesus, I believe that you're God. I want you in my life. I receive you today. I want you to be Lord of my life. I receive your forgiveness. Today, I'm beginning a relationship. In Jesus' name, amen. If you said that, I want to invite you at the end of the experience to make your way into the lobby and visit the white kiosk. Say, I made a decision to say yes to Jesus. We have some resources for you to help you along your journey. But for the rest of us, just stay here for a few more moments. I'm going to invite some of our team that has, it says prayer team on their badge. They're going to come to the front. They're going to come to the side. In the next few moments, we have a little bit of time left. And I want to encourage you, if you need prayer for anything right now, if you need prayer because you feel a little bit disconnected, if you need prayer because you feel a little bit discouraged right now in this season, if you need prayer because you just feel like you just don't know up from down, you don't know where you're going in life, you feel disconnected from your job, your relationship, you need help, let our team pray for you. I believe the best help comes from above. I really believe that. Let me pray for you as you make your way. Maybe you want to come down to the front, go to the side, go to the back, whatever the case may be. I want to pray. Father, I pray today that you would reconnect us and that you would deliver us, God, from the mood or the irritability, God, that we're connected to right now because we feel disconnected. The areas that we've compromised love, God, I pray that your grace would come in, God, would step in those areas where we've compromised love, and that you would renew hope again. You would renew our life again in such a way that would change us from the inside out. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Just be free. Make your way down to the front, the side. Our team's ready to pray for you. We love you. We'll see you next week. Hope to see you at Team Track. Sign up in the lobby on your way out. Get into a Connect group. Have an amazing Sunday, Kingdom Culture.